Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our East Coast Space City here in City Skylines 2. As always, I'm your host and creator, Legio, and if you like what you see on the screen, please do the typical YouTube stuff down below, because that would greatly help the channel out. So there's a whole lot going on in this episode. In fact, there's so much I broke it into two parts, because if I left it the way it was, this would be well over an hour of content, and I thought breaking it into two parts would make it much more easily digestible. And I do plan on releasing them back to back so long as everything goes according to plan, and I don't see anything getting in the way of that because it's already recorded. I am talking to you from the future essentially because the building portion has already been done and it's been edited, so basically all I gotta do is voiceover work from this point. So look at me go, I was being efficient. So a couple things before we dive into the live play. First, I want to address how I probably sound a little different. I have a new microphone. I upgraded from the Blue Snowball, which is a great introductory mic, and I went to the Wave 3. So it's a better mic. It definitely sounds better to me. I'm still kind of fine-tuning the sound quality and the filters and all that. So if you have suggestions, please leave them down below because I struggle with audio. That's probably my biggest gripe is the audio in this. And yeah, the next thing I have on my list here, because I do have a list, because I'm very informal, is we got some name suggestion. And this comes to us from Joshisha. I believe I pronounced that right. I'll put it up on the screen. It's a whole lot, but he came up with the idea of Mecklenburg. So let me go ahead and draw out the district real quick and get this bad boy named. Okay, so there's my crude drawing of it, and we are going to come in here. I think I have it copied on a clipboard here. Let's see if I can't just paste that over real quick. Yep, so this is going to be Mecklenburg, and I like that name. I like the burr at the end because that kind of seems East Coastish to me, like a burrow or something. So that's pretty good. And with that name, since he gave us our first name suggestion, I think we're going to name this lake a little something like this. Okay, now that we got that drawn in, we're going to name this Meck Lake. I think that makes sense. So there you go. Pretty simple. I like it though. So we got Mecklenburg and then we got Meck Lake. So that's pretty good. I like that. Now, for this episode, we are going to address our trash problem because we are basically drowning in trash over there, and we are going to address our electricity problem because we are consuming 7.1 megawatts and we're producing 1.2. So we are going to address that in this episode, and the spot for it is going to be right down in here. So I think this is going to be a good placement for it. Like I said, it's already built and I think you guys are going to like it. If you like detail work, this is probably the episode for you. So let's go ahead and just dive right into it, and I will see you in the fast play with some mediocre commentary. Alrighty guys, so to start things out, I go back in time and add some quick detail to this roundabout interchange we built in the last episode. This is something I should have done in the last episode, but I forgot about it, so it was a slight overlook in my part, so that's my bad. But what I do is I shift the train up to meet the highway to act as a support for the highway. I use some river surfaces to fill in the area, rough it up a little bit, and then I add a bunch of plants and foliage throughout it, just mimicking what's there in real life of Medford, Massachusetts, which is what we use for inspiration for most of this area that we built in the last episode. If you didn't see it, you should check out that episode. It's pretty good. Then I shift my focus down here to reworking the terrain, and I rework it quite a bit. The terrain here was just too rough to properly build what I had in mind. I did keep the concept of having a hill there and just gently sloping things down to smooth things out. I do apologize to City Planner Plays if he ever does see this video. I did not respect the topography at all here. But it does make some sense because when I was doing research, cities will really manipulate the terrain as they grow to such a large scale. They'll often level the terrain or smooth it out to make it a serviceable grade for them. So let's just say that's what happened here. And then next I begin work on a Trumpet interchange and the network that's going to service the industrial sector. I opted for a simple trumpet because I don't want this to have crazy connections. The primary focus here is to get it in and out of this industrial area. So it's a very simple, straightforward build. I've done it a few times, but what it is going to serve is this highway that's running across your screen. And then I sink that highway down, mainly because I like the look of sunken highways. This was more of an aesthetic reasoning, but also sunken highways are great. They allow for a better access to the different areas here. It allows you to build bridges over the top and keep those bridges at grade or ground level. And it really does allow for some more dynamic access. And I go a little crazy here with the access in a little bit. Also, sunken highways are just so hot right now.
So hot right now.
And then I built what should have been a simple diamond interchange here to act as the primary connection from the highway to this area. Or at least that's what I thought it was going to be. It turns out it's not going to be the main access. You'll see why later. And the nodes for the bridge, where the ramps connect at, they did not want to cooperate at all. They did typical city skylines tomfoolery, and they just kept going crazy, breaking, turning themselves into hills and valleys. I don't know why it does that. So this took some trial and error to get things looking acceptable. After completing and detailing the initial interchanges, I then move on to the real focus of this build, and that's the industrial sector. This industrial area is going to house more than just industry, however, as it's also going to be home to our power plant and a garbage incinerator. And I chose this area very specifically for the industrial zone due to its location along the river. The river ideally would serve as a great landing spot for ocean cargo vessels to transfer their load to riverboats to then take it inland. And the idea of this region is it was once an old docking area, say circa 1800s time, but as time passed, the region expanded and the docks moved out of this area. And this area was then repurposed for other industry and other services. There will be some remaining docks, but in general, this area has taken on a new role for the region. And now to address our energy problems, we placed down the gas power plant here, because let's be honest, it just looks right in this area. And nothing says great aesthetic quite like towering smokestacks casually dominating the skyline. And as weird as it is to admit, it does give this place some character, doesn't it? In fact, the smokestacks themselves might become sort of a local landmark, like a lighthouse, but instead of guiding ships to safety, they just remind everyone where the pollution comes from. So, I'm really stitching that community fabric here, really adding to the lore. But this gas power plant can produce up to 250 megawatts, so I think we're going to compromise our environmental values and go for the convenience of it. And when I was building this area out, I used the Ravenswood generating station as inspiration. Even though Ravenswood is an oil-based power plant that's located in Queens, New York, I don't think the difference really matters here. And then I placed the storage facilities, those giant tanks, on the water side of the plant, not only because it looks really cool, but theoretically it could make it a lot easier to receive and store the fuel by water. And I also added the docking area here for the ship access. Like I said earlier, I was trying to, and I quote, repurpose what could have once been there for usage. And delivering fuel in this method isn't a game mechanic, it isn't in-game at all, honestly. But we can just pretend, and we can just use our imagination.
Imagination!
And using our imagination, I came up with a clever way of repurposing the construction cranes to act as transfer pipes from the ship. So I place them down, and using the Recolor mod, move it in some strategic camera angles. You really can't tell that they used to be construction cranes. They definitely look like they blend into the environment now. And I don't know if this is how things actually work in reality to move fuel from a ship. I assume it is some sort of pipe work, but I truly don't know. So if you do know, let me know in the comments below. I just went with what I thought would look good here and what made sense. I also added a container ship alongside that fuel dock as well, because container ships always help the visual in industrial areas such as this. And the in-game container ship isn't an exact match for an oil tanker, but it really isn't that far off. If you compare them side by side, it's actually kind of difficult to tell the difference, so it's a very acceptable substitute. And I know placing in-game vehicles like this can cause some pathing issues or even potentially crashes, but so far I've been monitoring this area a little bit off screen as the area filled out, and there really haven't been any issues that I've observed, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed and hoping for the best. And then I filled out that dock with some more storage tanks, and I also sneaked in some actual industrial buildings to provide jobs and goods. My focus during this build was more on the appearances and detail and not in-game function, aside from providing power and garbage services. So, there's that. But I did attempt to find spots for functional buildings while also making everything look good. To finish up our power station, I built out my own large transformer station, much larger than what you would have in-game. I did utilize 2 functional substations to get the power to the grid, but the rest of this is all static buildings. Again, I used the Ravenswood power station as a guide to make sure everything looks somewhat believable, so I used it as a very loose template. And I used a combination of different static power buildings, and I just built kind of what looked good to me and fit this space and called it a day, because not everything has to be perfect. But I did find building this area to be somewhat fun. The wide variety of the electrical buildings kept things interesting and fresh. It also allowed me to make this area look somewhat unique in what could have been a very boring spot to build. After everything gets placed down, I do come back in and do some detail work with the surfaces and some props, and I could spend several more hours on detailing this space, but there really is so much more ground to cover in this build, so I have to call it a day at some point and move on. After finishing up our power plant, I move on to add even more electricity to the grid by placing down a garbage incinerator. I really like the incinerators because once the trash is collected, it pretty much poofs out of existence, so I tend to opt for these in city skylines too. And I know this incinerator won't be near enough to service the entire region going forward, but it does solve our immediate trash needs for now. And I do plan on adding garbage services as needed as I go instead of dedicating a whole episode to trash. That does sound really unappealing to me. And my plan is each station is going to be dotted throughout the region of the map, spreading out the burden so that you don't have one collecting for the entire map. I'll use the district tool to really try to hone in the collection sites. But I really do like how I tucked this incinerator next to the interchange here. I feel it's a really ergonomic use of the land and something you could see in reality. I also find it funny how you had to pass by a massive dumpster fire on your way to the downtown area. I feel there is some good symbolism there. To finish this space out, I then add another smaller substation on the back side here, the incineration plant. This is going to get the electricity we're generating from burning all the garbage into the grid itself. And I didn't want to leave this a big open empty lot. I wanted to have some kind of function. And I spent quite a bit of time with the surface tool and decals roughing it up and making it really dirty and grimy. Because if it's next to a garbage burning site, it's probably not going to be very clean or pristine. Here I decided to build another interchange for the area, because as I looked at this area, I felt the diamond interchange itself wouldn't be able to handle the volume of traffic that's about to hit it, so an addition was definitely needed here. The main challenge for this interchange was the limited space I had to work with, and I solved that by utilizing really tight curves and redesigning the Trumpet concept that I've used very often in this build. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And with the limited road network and space I had, I decided to have everything land into this roundabout right here. I know this will be kind of a crazy roundabout, but thanks to the nearby diamond interchange, I think these two interchanges will disperse traffic evenly and work simultaneously together. They'll sync up very nicely. I believe the game will have the garbage trucks and the gas delivery trucks use this crazy Trumpet anyways, and Standard Energy will most likely use the diamond interchange with the way I have things planned to be laid out. But we will see how things develop in the future. To fill in the awkward space here, I tried a couple different options, but I eventually landed on a small logistics business. And I wanted this spot to feel like it was developed much later after the interchange was built, and they wanted to squeeze in a business to maximize the land usage. So a logistics center made a lot of sense due to its nearby highway connection and the future industrial sector that's going to develop around it. But one frustrating aspect of building this was the lack of box trailers I could use. I originally wanted to have box trailers everywhere, but as it stands right now, at least in my game, box trailers are categorized as vehicles and not props. So whenever I did place them, they really messed up the pathfinding for the Sims. So for now, they're just going to be absent and I had to utilize other props. If there is a mod that I missed that lets me use prop box trailers, please let me know. I'd be very grateful and I would give you the biggest of shout outs. But I wrap up this fast play of the video by detailing out the space. What I essentially did is opened up the industrial props tab and just scrolled through it, grabbing whatever I thought would look good in the area. Some of the items might not make much sense, but I still think it looks cool. With all that said, I will see you guys in the live play. Alrighty guys, that's going to do it for part 1 of this 2-part episode. If you stuck around this long, then you should do the typical YouTube stuff because I greatly appreciate it. And if you really liked what you saw, you should go ahead and look for episode 2. It should be posted up right after this one. Again, I appreciate you guys and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day.